Tales of the TMNT Season 5, Episode 5, When Worlds Collide. As always, we have a pretty big break after, some random amount of episodes, so we're finally back, and we actually get a decent full hour-long special, two episodes kind of combined into one because it's just one grand event, and it was a really good episode. I knew that Mona Lisa and Sal Commander were coming back. I didn't know, I had no idea why they were coming back, and I certainly didn't know the first half was going to end and Drake suddenly comes back. So there were a lot of characters that made a return during this episode, as well as the Utram. So that was pretty awesome. They have the Utram. They referenced the Krang, but technically all the Krang that were being attacked were Utram. So we get Bishop, we have Rook, we get the Queen of the Utram back as well, so that was pretty awesome. We get to see, as always, Bishop do some pretty cool stuff throughout these two episodes. He was even getting beat up, which is really crazy, because Bishop is always the dude where he's dodging or just beating everybody else up, but he actually gets hurt a little bit. Neutralizer comes in as the first main villain, he's the one taking out all the Utram, so of course the rest of the, I can't remember the actual species, but the salamanders, they all come in, Salamandrians or something like that. They all come in because it's well, we're going to take this guy out. So of course we get Mona Lisa and Sal Commander. He wants revenge, of course, and Mona Lisa gets to see Raph, so, they finally have their little moment, and that was really good. So I like seeing them join up again. They had a really hilarious moment when they talk about them going to Earth, and Mona Lisa just sees Raph. For whatever reason, in her mind, he's just doing push-ups, and then he starts doing one-handed push-ups. That really made me laugh. And even before that, we have all of our little pairings for all our characters. So Raph is sitting there with Chompy, and he's watching, the Star Trek show where the dude is in love with one of the green women, which is a reference to the original Star Trek. Although the drawing for her, she looked exactly like She-Hulk to me. I was like, she looks exactly like She-Hulk. It was really funny. But he's watching that, he's don't you guys care? This dude just lost the love of his life. And so we have Donnie and April, they're playing with popcorn and stuff. And it was interesting, they kind of played up on them actually being together, maybe in the future. But they played up a lot on them in these two episodes, so I thought that was interesting. But we have that, then Raph goes to see that Karai and Leo are training with each other, and then he goes to talk with Mikey, who actually has this little future tech thing from Renee, so that they can actually talk with each other through space and time. So I thought that was awesome. Everyone has their pairings, and Raph is kind of just stuck on his own until he realizes that Mona Lisa is actually coming to Earth. So they, of course, end up having their moment, and everybody's battling. It's alright, well, turns out this guy that we thought was dead actually ends up surviving. He's got a superpower now, so we have Neutralizer with the superpower. Then it's referenced this other person that we thought was dead actually ended up surviving, and now he's alive out in space, and that is, of course, Lord Dreg. Turns out he survived, and he had a crazy war with the Salamandrians, and that was just super freaking chaotic. And it's alright, that's crazy. We'll get to see him at some point, is kind of what I was thinking. That's interesting that they referenced that. So things are going on. They cannot freaking beat Neutralizer. He has these crazy freaking electric powers. He's teleporting the whole time. He can jump back and forth through dimensions. And it was great. He was a great villain on his own. I thought that in itself was good, because it was really tough for them to actually beat this guy. And we finally get to the ending, and it's alright, well, we almost got him. They're fighting him. He ends up zapping Mikey. And of course I knew he wasn't actually going to be dead. So it's he ends up basically almost being digitized is pretty much what happened. He turns into just pure energy, and poof, he disappears. Everyone thinks he's dead. I knew he was going to come back because Mikey always comes back. Mikey always gets the weird superhero things. He's always the one in the craziest of situations that gets superpowers. Or when they first went to Dimension X, he was the only one that could figure out how to survive there, and just little stuff like that. It's always Mikey that has these crazy adventures as either the superhero, or the only turtle that managed to survive in Dimension X, or the dude who gets, eviscerated and turned into pure energy, and then he comes back with lightning powers. It's always Mikey for some odd reason. But he gets zapped out. Raph ends up shooting Neutralizer with the gun that's supposed to zap his energy, and it probably would have worked. Unfortunately, there's this crazy electromagnetic interference, which I thought was from the gun itself. I thought something was, wrong, something was maybe messed up, and it was actually giving Neutralizer powers, or maybe he was just absorbing all the electricity, so he'd overload the gun. But it ends up being this giant ship, and turns out Lord Dreg comes in at the very end of the first half of this, and I was well, that's freaking crazy, because they could hardly handle, Neutralizer on his own. So Dreg comes in, he's dropping aliens, he's dropping goop to, you know, spring the aliens out. They're just collecting people and sticking them on like this gross goop mountain thing that's supposed to be for his children. And it just gets even crazier as things go on. So he invades, basically trying to take over the whole planet. Unfortunately, the team just isn't strong enough to take on, you know, like I said, they couldn't do it in the first half when it was just Neutralizer, because he's like impervious to everything now because he's got like crazy superpowers. Now Dredd comes in and it's like, hey, we teamed up, we're both alive, let's wipe everybody out. So they team up, and now it's almost completely impossible for them to actually defeat the enemies. And it was really good. The action was great during both halves of this. Of course, once Dredd comes in, it becomes like a little, you know, survival thing where it's like, we gotta hide, and they were like in a bank or something where they're like, we gotta figure out what the plan is gonna be. And it was just really good, and they're getting, you know, people were getting picked off like one by one. And I loved it. I thought it was really great. We get to see some great action. We get to see characters basically just getting kidnapped by these bugs and taken to drag. They're still dealing with Neutralizer because he's super freaking powerful. Then eventually, Mikey comes back and he's got his lightning power, so he starts dealing with Neutralizer. And then even when that happens, we end up losing Karai and they lose Donnie as well. So they get taken up to the ship. It's like, man, what are we going to do? So they're just going through, and it was just sweet the whole way through. It was a bunch of action. Mikey ended up in basically like a DBZ fight. He's turning the lightning bolts and they're running around and stuff, so that was pretty cool. And I just love the way it all played out. Like, ultimately, everything was just absolutely insane, but they're able to ultimately use Mikey's abilities as well as Neutralizer's, because I would assume he died. But, you know, he basically ends up being like this supercharge for the ship that forces it to leave, and Mikey's able to kind of control it and get the ship to take off as well. But of course, he ends up surviving the end. It's supposed to be like he's going to die and everything. I thought they were going to do it where Sal Commander was actually going to take his place and be like, you know, as long as I got revenge, you know, Neutralizer and everything. But it doesn't end up happening. Everyone ultimately ends up surviving. And Mona Lisa actually gets to stay on Earth, which I thought was cool. So she'll be with the Mighty Mutant. So I thought that was pretty awesome. But it was a great episode the whole way through. Naturally, the only thing missing was Casey Jones. I thought that from the very beginning. I was like, this whole episode, you know, it's like, it's everyone. Bishop comes in, Mona Lisa, Sal Commander. Of course, you know, you have the rest of the team. You got the Turtles, April, and Karai. And I got that it worked for, like, the pairing thing in the beginning. They even could have done it where it was like, you know, Casey and Donnie have feelings for April because they've talked about it before. But I was like, okay, you know, it makes sense not to have them there, just to specifically have the parents and no one else to talk with Raph. But Casey just, I swear it's like he gets no love. Like, there's so many moments where I'm like, Casey could be right here helping out. Literally every character. I mean, they didn't have the Mighty Mutanimals, but, you know, Casey's a little bit above the Mighty Mutanimals as far as a recurring character. And it's like, no Casey Jones. And I was just like, that's just crazy to me. It's like this whole thing. And then you even go into the invasion. Like, it would have made sense. Like, at least include him in the second half if he was doing, you know, just some random excuse. Doesn't show up for the first half, and then it's like, oh crap, aliens all over. Here's Casey Jones now with the team, and that adds one person. And as they, you know, because they were still losing people anyway during the second half, so they get one person, lose two people anyway. It would have worked perfectly, and it was just like, man, it's crazy. All this crazy action that's happening. Bishop is here, you know, team splitting off and stuff. Mikey with superpowers, and Casey Jones is just absent. It was like, that sucks so much. I feel like there's so many episodes and huge battles where it's like, why isn't Casey here? That's all I ever think, and that's what I thought this whole way through. Like, they have everyone fighting, brought in characters from space. Still no Casey Jones. It's just weird when he's not there to me. But still a great episode. Very excited for next week's episode. Usagi Yojimbo is coming in, so that's going to be super awesome. It's unfortunately in an alternate dimension this time, so it can't, like, they would have to jump dimensions every time in order to visit him. But it's still cool that we get to see him. So I'm very excited for that. Like I said, this was just a great hour-long special, especially coming back to it, because, I don't know, it feels like it's already been 3 months. It's probably only been like a month and a half, but it feels like it's already been forever since the last episode. But this was a really great episode to come back on. We have, you know, villains that were recurring, you know, two people who were supposed to be dead, they come back, and they're just insanely tough the whole way through until the very end. So it was really well done. It was really great. Huge cast of the characters in this, people getting taken and swapped out, and, you know, one person like dying and then getting superpowers. It was just very well done. And then of course they have to take Mikey's powers at the end, because it's like, oh well, if he keeps them, they'll kill him, so they have to, you know, suck the powers out of him to save his life pretty much. I was like, of course they have to do that. But Definitely a great episode, of course. We'd love to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And with where we're headed as far as next week's episode and this one having kind of reintroduced some guest characters, we'd love to know which characters you guys want to see show up in like the next Tales of the TMNT. I'm hoping that the next episode, especially with it being such a famous character, I would love to see them do a two-parter with that as well. I wouldn't expect it to be an hour next week, but even if we get, the next 2 weeks, it's, part 1 and part 2 of, Yojimbo in it, I would love to see that, but I'd love to know what characters you guys want to see make a return, what new characters, if you're like really deep into the TMNT lore, what characters you guys want to see show up. I'm still waiting for Fugitoid. I've been saying that ever since they showed that he was alive. There's like no reference to him. I kind of thought something might happen in this episode as well, because we have other space characters coming in, specifically when it's like, okay, well, it starts off where it's just these characters, where it's like they're all from the same species and stuff. This guy was supposed to be dead, he came back to life. These two characters that we know from space come in. It's like, there could be a reference there. And then Drake comes in, I'm like, I feel like they have to reference Fugitoid at some point soon, I would hope. So I would love to see him just because I want that story to continue, because they showed that he was alive. So all I can think of is like, man, where is he? Like, what's happening with him? What's he been doing? So that's what I really want to see, just because we've already had that character. I want that continuation now as to where they go with him next. But very excited for the next episode. Like I said, want to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.